You would be so kind to start. Who the hell are you and why are you here?
So my name is Mike Mearls. I work on D&D. I'm the senior manager for the D&D team at Wizards of the Coast. And I've been gaming tabletop RPGs my entire life, and I've been working them professionally for about 14 years now. So and then we agreed that the question...
Yes, the question that will help you get to know our panelists today is, what was your worst moment as a GM? So Mike, what was that for you?
So it wasn't so much a moment as like a couple years where I was really obsessed with like having like a very railroaded story. Like it was my campaign, the players just showed up every week to watch me run it in front of them. And it took me a while to really get over that, because especially when I was younger, I just thought, this is my story, and I wanted to have everything so scripted that it was just suffocating any real creativity people were having in the campaign. So.
I hate when the players get in the way of your story.
Hi, my name is Matt McElroy. I'm the director of publishing for DriveThruRPG, and then I do some freelance development for Vampire the Masquerade. I've been gaming probably as long as Mike. My worst GMing moment was Game Fest Milwaukee. I had 2 players in my All Flesh Must Be Eaten game get into a fist fight at the table.
Why?
We'll get to that later.
Is that your best moment or your worst?
That's when we enter combat phase. It's fine. My name's Adam Koebel. I'm a co-founder of Sage Kobold Productions. We put out Dungeon World. And my worst moment as a GM, I played Rifts once. It was pretty bad.
My name is Ben Mandall. I started The Art of the Table, and I write for both The Art of the Table as well as Gaming Trend. I've been a geek for far too long, and my worst moment as a GM actually wasn't at the table, it was getting to it, because I've been struggling with depression for the last couple of years, and probably my worst moment was feeling too depressed to run games. That's not the way I feel, and I absolutely hated feeling that way.
Word.
My name is...
Oh no!
Cole. Alright, there you go. Here we do it.
So my name is Randy Scheunemann. I'm the retail liaison with Steve Jackson Games. We do things like Munchkin and GURPS.
I hope that was one title.
No, you can do it.
Just wait.
You can do it. I'm mainly a game developer along with everything else I do there. My probably worst experience as a GM is actually passing up the opportunity to GM so that somebody else can do it repeatedly week after week instead of stepping up and doing it myself a couple of weeks.
My name is Emily Karabos, and I'm an independent role-playing game designer. I'm down at the Indie Bazaar booth along with Bernie Beal and the Dungeon World folks. And my worst moment as a GM actually was when I was playtesting a game with my dear friends and housemates who weren't role players, and that was like the classic mistake. I don't recommend it. And I was just running through a game, and I got halfway through, and it was grinding, and I was like, oh, so something's not working, and they're like, we just hate your premise. So I had to walk away and take a few months off. Kept going with that game.
I hate your players.
They didn't say it like that, but it was hard not to hear it that
So
way.
you exaggerate. Okay. Hi, my name is Shane LeRose. I have been gaming for 25 years now. And I have a failed Kickstarter, not a successful one. I had a gaming store for about 5 years, but then a divorce led that to going away. Not my divorce, my business partner's divorce. My worst moment in gaming was just last year when I had to ask 2 friends, both of which I'd known for about 10 years, to stop playing at my table. Yeah, one guy got mad, threw a pencil at someone because he can't really take a joke or get made fun of. It stuck into a wall and left a gouge in the wall of my friend's new house. In the course of speaking with everyone about what happened and trying to get a gauge of like, all right, did we ask this guy to leave? How do you guys feel about each other? What's the status of the game? I found out there was another player that really rubbed everyone the wrong way, and I never figured it out because I just didn't want to. So that's a call to like really pay attention to your group, talk to your players, get to know them more than just friends and people, because sometimes you have to make the hard choice of going, you people are a-holes. and you're making it unfun for everyone else, you gotta go. Granted, that was way more elegant than how I actually said it to them. And so there's.
All right, so I have a question for the room before we begin. Would everyone who would identify as a new GM please throw up your hands? You all rock! I am happy to see so many hands up because that is the future right there. All right, so the way we're going to be doing this is a question and answer. If we could have people, enforcers, is that mic live?
Should be.
Should be. All right, if we could have people line up at that mic, we're going to be taking your questions. Feel free to start going down there. Here are the rules. This is PAX, we're all adults, so if you need to ask a question of a mature nature about sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever, please feel free. Just realize we're going for PG-13 here, so if you're running NC-17 content, that's not really what we're going to be for today. In addition, what I ask is no character stories. I'm just going to say right now, you all have awesome characters, and if we want to talk about that after we can, but please, no character stories. Limit it to one question. If we go through the entire line, feel free to jump to the end of the line and we'll go through as quick as we can. We'll do our best. All right, then without further ado, sir, what is your question for our esteemed panel?
Check. Okay. So every now and then, not often, but every now and then, you'll have a situation where two NPCs need to speak with one another in front of a gaming group. And what inevitably happens is the game manager, or game master, excuse me, ends up talking to himself. And it's awkward as hell. Do you guys run into this, and how do you work around it?
Thank you.
Just summarize it, because I've actually tried doing that, and I like it maybe a little too much, so I've learned to not do it. So it'll just be like, oh, and then the shopkeep talks to his assistant, and they confer and determine that you need to go west to find Bob of Bobville, right? Like, because otherwise I would just go back and forth for Bob. Yeah, no one listens to me except me, so when I talk to myself, I give myself the attention I deserve.
And you know what, as tempting as it is to, bring out your entire lexicon of silly accents so you can practice on yourself, it's actually a lot easier just to nominate another player to be one of those NPCs. Like, I know it can be really scary if you're used to running a very firm hand on the tiller kind of game, but if it's not a really consequential conversation, just say, all right, who wants to be this other NPC, and let's play it out. Because most of the time, your players are as familiar with your NPCs as you are.
Thanks, guys.
All right, next question, please.
Hi, everybody. So with 5th edition coming out soon, my role-playing group, we're going to start up a D&D campaign, and I'll be DMing it. My DMing experience is pretty limited, 6 months of a Rogue Trader campaign 3 years ago. And my biggest concern is that I have 9 people who want to play, and I'm pretty sure they're all going to do it. Now it's kind of flattering that many people want to play, but I think it's more the 5th edition than me. But how have you guys ever had large campaigns? And if you did, how did you actually keep everybody interested? Because I don't want to suck.
Emily, I saw your hand up.
There's one trick that a friend of mine did that you might want to steal, which was they had 2 different groups that were playing.
They shot that down.
Parallel? All right, well, I'll just tell the idea. And
It is a good, I'm sorry.
But just, and they were in the same world, so they were affecting each other's lives, so that as one set did something, then that would be the plot, or part of the plot that the GM brought in next time. I mean, I can imagine having like rivaling dungeon delving in the same dungeon, but just going through different parts at the same time. So it's too bad that they shot that down, because it's really fun.
Get him to try LARPing.
Another option.
This answer brought to you by White Wolf.
Another option too, something my friend and I did just a few years ago with the Carrying Crown campaign out of Paizo, is co-DM. I co-DM'd with him for the first Adventure Path book until we lost a couple of players and we decided, no, 2-on-4 might be a little much, so let's incorporate me back into the game. But if you trust one of them to do that, have them co-DM with you so that you can have 2 NPC conversations.
Randy, if you could get him the mic.
I'll also keep it with 9 people. I mean, people are gonna miss sessions, and so my rule of thumb is I always have like 2 or 3 extra players. If I need 4, I get 7. So you might just find it'll take care of itself.
And you get those people up front. You might have 9 people to start with, but it's almost inevitably that out of the 9, somebody's gonna bag halfway through, or just not stop showing up, or 9 people. Just nobody can get any time in. You can't get any me time in the group. So if they really want to do 9, then they got to be concentrating on the ball, and I've never seen it work.
So everybody in the room is naysaying you, but I say go for it. I've been running the same Dungeon Crawl Classics game for almost 2 years with 14 people. The point here, though, is that the system has to support you, right? Like DCC is not mechanically complex enough to require a lot of work, so you can rip through a big combat pretty fast. So look at first of all whether this edition of D&D is the right fit for that size of group. Like pick the game for the group as much as you pick the group for the game.
All right, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Using DCC since DCC has the wonderful funnel where your characters are eliminated one at a time, you could pit the players against one another and have them be eliminations. So they have to hang in there. If their character dies, they're out of the game.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Sir, what have you got for us today?
Okay, I have a gaming group that tends to not be engaged in the story. I have like one player who actually pays attention to what the NPCs are saying. Do you guys have any ideas on how to engage the group so that they actually listen to and possibly understand the story that I'm trying to tell?
Take away their smartphones. You gotta turn it off if they're not paying attention. Playing video games is great. I love it. Sitting down, some people come, and I know people who this is their Thursday night. This is the night away from the family. This is their time to unwind. And if you come to play a story and everybody's just sitting there texting other people who aren't in the room or who didn't bother to show up at all, it's really like a terrible thing for the people who are there to actually role play. And smartphones are one of the best pieces of technology that's come out in the past 10 years. And they are absolutely ruining the way some people deal with other people as individuals.
In addition, a question I might consider is what story do they want to tell? Because they might really want to play Firefly, and they just didn't know it. And you're running Shadowrun, and you're a great Shadowrun GM, but that's just not the story they were looking for. As a possibility.
Right, that was actually one of the things that I'm like, okay, you guys have a little downtime. What do you want to do? And when somebody goes, I want to go fight something. And I'm like, okay. I guess I'll put an encounter here, you know?
So for some players, a question like, you get downtime, what do you want to do? It's a role-playing game, you can do whatever you want. It can be really scary and daunting. Like there are players who enjoy just showing up and looking at their phone and rolling some dice when it's their turn and passing them over. So to engage players, ask loaded questions. Say, give them a chance to input on stuff that's not as important. So like, why is the constable of this town so pissed off at you, thief? Or, what did you do to piss off this demon, cleric? Like you can lead them into the ideas you have for the game without just saying you've pissed off the demon, now you have to fight.
All right, thank you.
All right, next question, please.
All right. So as a person who's literally never GM'd before and really, really wants to, like I have an idea, I have people who want to play, like say a pirate campaign. I go, okay, I have people, I have an idea. Shit, now what? I just have a hard time getting started, like thinking of how I can make encounters or like how I can build a story. If you have any ideas on like just brainstorming and how to like get started, I would really appreciate it.
Don't jump on this one at once, guys.
Everyone get it at once, okay?
No, so one of the nice things about a role-playing game is you have your players, they all probably want to be creative too because they want to play a role-playing game. I play in a bi-weekly D&D game where I'm pretty sure the DM has no prep. He just puts us in little situations, and like my character's trying to strike deals with demon lords, and someone else is trying to kill my character, and someone else is just wants to kill the entire group. And especially with the pirate game, you start with something as simple as, okay, you're on a ship, and each of you tell me why you want to mutiny, or something like to Adam's point. Like, and suddenly it's like, well, no, I don't know if I want to mutiny. And people are arguing, and then like you might have an entire 3-hour session with the players, like, are we going to mutiny against this jackass captain or not? And that's role-playing, and that's what's great about it, right? Especially if it's stuff that engages people, they're going to generate more plot hooks than you will probably ever come up with yourself, or more scenes or more interesting stuff. So in some ways, coming to it with a blank page or just like a rough sketch, I mean, that's how I run my sessions. I basically have like one piece of paper with like 4 things written down, and I just riff off what the players are doing, you know, and because I think that when you get players interested in something, that's what they really, really love, that kind of stuff. I mean, you're catering your audience.
Thank you very much.
So I'm a new GM and I'm just taking over this game, and I had a little trouble with combat last time I started trying to be GM. We had problems with combat running, like turns taking too long, people were not entirely clear on the rules, and I wasn't quite comfortable enough with the system to sort of run new monsters or characters on the fly. I was wondering if there's anything that you could suggest to help streamline the process and help simplify it a bit for just keeping track of it and helping it run more smoothly. Because we are enjoying it, crazy shit happens, it's all fun. It's just, there will be plenty of times where it's just a little too mechanical.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna keep hitting this point, I think, through the whole panel. But first of all, like, is this the game? Is the game supporting you, or is it holding you back? Right? Like, it's easy to go from one campaign to another, all using the same system because it's what you're familiar with. But if you're just getting started as a GM, some games are better at that than others, and you can often maintain the cadence of your campaign. You can move the characters from one system to another and still maintain the general idea of the campaign, but you can try it with another system that's maybe easier on GMs. Because it can be very hard to jump into a really mechanically heavy game when you're ostensibly responsible for all the rules.
Matt, I want to pick on you for a second because White Wolf is somewhat infamous for how combats can go. Do you have any advice for when combat's running long?
One of the first things I do is I ask everybody at the table if every single punch is really important. So if your goal is to beat this bad guy, you can go through a really quick version of the combat. You don't have to play out every single stab or superpower or whatever it happens to be, because the idea is...
I'm sorry, I'm getting interrupted. I think we're having trouble hearing you in the back.
Yeah. Did you win? I mean, what's the goal of the character? So is it more important to have a scene, or is it more important to roll every single power or piece of a combat? And especially if your group is having trouble where your combat scene takes forever, trim that down and describe what your character's primary goal is, and then move on.
Yeah, one of the GM's biggest roles, and this varies obviously from game to game, is pacing, right? Is being like, okay, this fight is taking too long, pretty sure you guys are gonna win, let's cut it here and jump to 2 days later, and this is what happened as a result. Yeah, don't be afraid to play with time.
Okay, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to cut it there. Quick question to the enforcers. Do you need us out of here at 8 o'clock, 8:30 sharp? Yeah. 8:30 sharp, all right. So we've got 40 minutes left, and it looks like we have a lot of questions. So I'm gonna start bouncing between the lines. Let's have 1, maybe 2 people if you have to throw out your sense answer, and we're just gonna see if we can burn through everybody. All right, so, sir.
All right, I'll try to be quick. Piggybacking on her question, I also knew I apologize to the experienced DMs, or GMs. One, what systems are streamlined and good for a beginner? And 2, should you play before you GM? Because I've never played before. I got into this because I played some Fiasco and really liked it. I also am a writer, so I think I would enjoy being a GM. But going back to Mike's comment, I feel like I might have that railroad mentality. So so there are 3 questions. System, how do I avoid railroading as a writer? And yeah, do I need to play first?
I think we're all going to have a lot of different answers for system, but my first recommendation is yes, play, and go down to Games on Demand tomorrow and play several different games.
Yeah, try as many games as you can, both as player and GM, even if it's just one session, and fail spectacularly at as many of them as you want. Like, feel free to be bad at it, because you always learn something, even from a session you completely flub.
Actually, let's just go down the line real quick. What is the game system or the adventure that you would recommend for a newer GM?
Oh, we haven't published it yet. I mean, but no, when 5th edition D&D Next ever comes out, we're totally aiming at you. who have. I mean, there's lots of good games out there, but I will stand by the game I've worked on.
I'm gonna say Dungeon World.
I am also going to say Dungeon World.
I'd say if you're a storyteller, stick with something that's really story heavy, and then work out from there, something that you're comfortable with a portion of.
I'd say Dread, which uses Jenga instead of dice, which is a really intuitive game. And also Apocalypse World, which is a relative of Dungeon World, which has incredible advice and support for GMs and people learning to GM. I think we do a great job there.
I'm not going to comment on the system just because I play Pathfinder, and Pathfinder is easy for me now because I've been playing it since it was in beta. So I won't say anything there. But I will say this because I have a problem with railroading myself. Don't make a story. Make the world, make the NPCs, let their conflict naturally happen. You have event-based things that will happen as time goes on. You have all this stuff already there. Now, bring the players in. System doesn't matter. The story is what the players will create. So, world, NPCs, invite the players in.
And just because no one said it, Toon, the cartoon RPG. If you haven't played it, thank you for the question. Sir.
Whoa, jeez. I forget I can project. So, I'm moving from something that is really friendly to narrative, D20, to something that's really kind of improv heavy, Fate Core. And I was wondering what kind of advice you guys have on planning versus balancing planning and improv and like story and being reactive to the players.
So with Fate in particular, there's only a few things you need to get you started, right? You need to know the general aspects of the campaign, you need to know some of the important characters and maybe their aspects, but beyond that, you can let the dice kind of guide you from place to place. And, you know, again, that advice is guided towards Fate, but really all you need to be aware of is the mechanically significant stuff. You don't want to spend a lot of time flipping pages at the table. As long as you know what your NPCs want and you know what your monsters are about and you have a general idea of the world, you can kind of let it flow from there. You'll learn to, the more you play, you'll learn to trust the system to back you up, and you'll learn to trust your own brain to not run away when you need to come up with an idea.
All right, thank you.
All right, sir.
I've been GMing for about 8+ years now, but I've recently realized that I still haven't developed my own kind of process for doing the prep work, and I've found that recently I've been having less and less time, and because of that, less and less interest in getting to do the prep work, even though I love running the game for my group. I much prefer running the game than playing the game. So is there anything that I can do to maximize the prep versus play, or pull something from your collective decades of prep and GM work to use tools, tricks, or anything like that that you've come to repeatedly rely on in your prep work?
I rely on my players for my prep. I ask them a lot of questions.
I actually got a lot.
Why are they here? Why did they create this character? So make them do your prep work for you.
Emily, you look like you want to jump on that?
Yeah, I wanted to say, for my GM style, I love collaborative games where there's a lot of shared creation of world at the beginning, and the characters are something that everybody's making together and building on one another. So there's a lot of really collaborative games that I would recommend that would be good. And Microscope is a game that's really good for creating a world together, so that might be something to check out.
Sorry, what was that?
It's called Microscope.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And you can steal stuff. Don't be surprised at how dense players can be if you steal plots and characters and stuff from other things, especially when you mix and match them. My DCC game is pretty much Castlevania with the Wu-Tang Clan as NPCs.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
How do you go about dropping a player that's family?
Family.
Oh. Randy's got it.
Like, is it a brother-in-law or? Communication. I mean, it's the same with anything. If you were playing disc golf with somebody every week, or you're going to like out for a drive every weekend or going to the movies every week and you just don't want to be around this person or they're really wrecking it for you. I mean, it's family, so you don't want to break anything because you're going to see them every holiday.
It's more like we run 3 campaigns that switch off so the DMs don't burn out, and he disappeared for the entire last campaign apparently to go play Warhammer and never said anything.
You got to talk to him about it. I mean,
yeah.
In the end, if you don't talk to him about it, then in his mind there's nothing. But if you, I mean, he's there to role play, so obviously he's like, when he's there, he wants to be a part of the story. But you have to sit down and say, look, this is a problem. If you want to keep coming, these other 4 guys, this is their thing. If you want to keep coming, you got to keep coming. If you can only come on these days, then we'll plan around that. But I got to know when you're going to be here. And I mean, communication is key.
All right.
All right, thank you very much. Sir.
Hey, thank you. I have a question pertaining to my game. I GM a game, and unfortunately we're not able to meet as often as some of us or all of us would like to. You know, family stuff gets in the way, distance gets in the way, and you know, it could be weeks, months before we get together for a game. One thing falls apart. So what the problem is it's keeping a flow. So going from one game to the next game, if you're doing it every week, you know, it's like, okay, we picked up last Thursday, but if you're going month to month, it's like you basically have to retell the game. So I was wondering if you have any hints or ideas to kind of keep it interesting for the players and also for the GM, so I don't have to redo all my work every month, the same exact thing.
Yeah, actually, I video record my games. We've been doing that for a few years now. It's not even worth posting, so don't look for it. But it's really good for when I want to sit down and watch it, see how I am, see how the other players are. It's part of the reason why I did it was because of that incident from before, because it allowed me to look at everyone and go, okay, so I can see when someone's uncomfortable with this person here, for example. But what you can also use is just use the internet. Use that to great lengths. Write things up and post them somewhere for everyone to share so that there's an update that they can reference. They won't reference it until they sit down at the table. I promise you that. I've so many player handouts that just sit there collecting dust. But it's there. And then when they sit down at the table, they read it real quick. Oh, that's where we are. Okay, oh, I can't wait. So it's a little more work, and I'm sorry, but sometimes you gotta love the work.
You can bend your game around the needs of the group too, right? Like instead of making one, say we'll use D&D as an example, one like mega dungeon that's going to take you 12 weeks to get through, break it down, do little short adventures and make it like a TV show. So if somebody doesn't show up, it's okay, their character was off doing something. And when they get back, have them, like ask them, like where was your character while we were in this dungeon? And 9 times out of 10 they'll come up with something fun that you'll be able to bring them back in.
If distance is a problem, try some of the gaming online. I'm running a vampire game over Google Hangouts right now with people in 6 different countries. So.
All right, thank you very much for the question.
Mine's a little bit more about the logistics of hosting an event. Out of a misguided desire to play more, I coordinated with a local game shop and run a game night every week, which has been 3 people, it's sometimes 16 people, ranging from 9 to 40, and same levels of ranging, you know, who they know, how they know to play, their ability to pay attention. To make it fair to everybody and keep it open and welcoming and diverse and exciting, which is how it's fun, do you guys have any recommendations for sort of setting the tone of the environment and how we as GMs can sort of help that process happen better?
You might want to think about having different kinds of games that you're always going to recommend for people at different levels. And just maybe even in your announcements about the event, say, we run games at beginner, advanced, or in these systems usually. That'll help people feel comfortable and sort themselves into groups. And also, you'll probably play games over and over again, so you'll get better at having games that you can really easily introduce people to.
And I'm going to suggest, don't be afraid to have a ringer or 2 in the group. If I know that Bradford is playing at a game, I'm going to take him aside and say, hey, could you help me set blank tone of the adventure? And if I can do that with even 1 player, but maybe 2 or 3, they can really help lead the other players. In addition, don't be afraid to say no. Nothing will destroy a group faster than an unhappy GM, and if you don't feel like GMing for 15 people tonight, you need to feel comfortable saying, I'm sorry guys, but Bill got in at the 10th slot, and we're capped for the evening.
So I think just before we go on, it's really important, you mentioned you want to keep your group inclusive, which I think is huge, both for individual groups and for the hobby in general, that we need gaming to be a safe space no matter whether you're a man or a woman or how you identify in any regard. So I would look at, and there's lots of advice available online, especially from like the LARP community, for creating that safe space. And I do some research into that and look at how you can make sure that, whether it's through talking about your policy for the night or making sure that everyone is on the same page, there's lots of tools that can help you create a space, and you're going to attract more players and get a better, diverse group.
All excellent advice. I'm going to tell you something that's actually kind of mean, but will actually work in your situation. I did it at my store. Write up a list of expectations. If you cannot meet these expectations, please don't come to this table. It's rough, but you'll be surprised how many people will not come by to play. You'll be down to the people that genuinely want to be there.
All right, now I think we have.
Thanks.
Move on to the next question. Thank you very much. Sir.
I started out playing a very loosey-goosey kind of, I mean, it was basically just my GM had one D20 and he made up whatever he wanted. And that was kind of cool, because he didn't have any materials. But what that allowed us to do is it encouraged a lot of creativity from the players. And so when I did my first attempt at a game, I tried to kind of adapt that a little bit. And I ran into the same problem he did, where the players got overpowered, and it's you kind of keep letting them stretch the boundaries, and you can't really control that. So I've started playing with a new system. I'm actually playing 4th edition. And a couple of the players who are playing with me were in one or both of those games, and they're now feeling a little bit confined by
They tasted power.
It's not even necessarily that they don't feel like they can do powerful enough things, but they don't feel like they can throw enough flair into that. And do you have any, I guess, are there any recommendations on how to keep them within the boundaries of what they should be capable of doing while still allowing them to be creative?
So within the context of 4th, I presume some of your players like that structure and they enjoy it, and it's just someone So here's a dirty secret about 4th edition. If they don't mind having a book open or just thinking about it, there really isn't any reason why you have to pick a specific power at a specific level. They could basically use any power from that class when they want to use it. It doesn't actually break anything, because the powers are defined. So if you don't mind just letting the players be a little bit creative, as a rule of thumb for any encounter power, they can put on any condition as long as it lasts for a round, except stun. They can move people up to 3 or 4 squares in any direction. For at-wills, they can move anyone in about a square or 2 and maybe knock someone prone. And for dailies, basically, they don't get to just make up anything, but they get close to within the bounds of the other powers at that level. So it might help them if you have access to the online tools and the players want to get creative. Just let them search the list of powers for their class and pick what they want to do, or riff off, I want to combine this power and that power. You're actually not really breaking anything as long as you're not just adding the 2 powers together, but if you just take half one power, half the other, they're basically all balanced against each other mathematically. So within terms of power, they shouldn't be too powerful, and they might feel like they have a lot of flexibility.
Anyone on this side of the table want to add to that?
And me.
I guess if depends on what they want to be creative about. If they just want to explore their characters and the world, there's probably a lot of room for that. That maybe if you're focused on just the adventure and getting through, it might not seem like there's room, but maybe you can see if there's some give and take with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir.
So I'm a GM and internet nerd. I do a live stream. We have 2 groups running in the same setting, and I'm sort of obsessed with getting players to interact with the game outside of the game. We've got them submitting reflections, and somebody writes our adventure log every week, and we've got Easter eggs on the wiki and things like that. And I'm just wondering if you guys had any ideas, especially because I'm prepping to run my first D&D for charity event this summer for 5th edition, and if you had any ideas about how to engage people in sort of a transmedia sense.
That's an awesome question. I would suggest check out, there's a game called, and I think the text is free, called Stars Without Number, that has basically a GM solo game that you play between sessions to explain what's going on in the world. And the way that I did it when I ran it was that I would run that immediately after the session, and then between sessions I would post fake like SpaceNet news articles about the game, and the players could, in character on this Facebook group, they could interact with those posts and learn more about certain things. And it was very low touch and easy to do because you're on Facebook anyway. So that's just, just one like practical example, something you could check out. Stars Without Number.
Mike, did I see you?
It's basically the same, just recap.
Okay. One thing I was going to suggest is let your players build NPCs from that setting, and if that NPC wants to do something, make it publicly available on Facebook, on Obsidian Portal, wherever you feel comfortable using. If they want to be, the local barkeep, let them run with it. I guarantee you they'll generate something interesting, in addition to what their character might already be doing.
You're doing good anyways. Holy crap.
But I want to raise more money for child support.
But I mean, Jesus Christ, that's more than I've ever done. That's awesome. You're even a round of applause. All right.
Students, this is what happens when you write your master's thesis on Dungeons and Dragons.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much. Sir, your question.
Thanks. I've been a GM for probably 8 years or so now, and so my system of choice is Call of Cthulhu. So it's more narrative-based than a lot of other systems, and so I do a lot of prep work, but I really want to riff on my players and let my players' choices interact the story. How do you guys come up with authentic NPC names on the fly?
Lists, lots of lists.
I look in the
Someone said
backer.
Avalapia, and that's a generator, so that's a good source.
Yeah.
I get lazy and I just open to the Kickstarter backer page.
During gameplay, like you
So during my next Kickstarter, I guarantee you that if you back it, you will be an NPC in my game.
There's also a book called The Names Project, which is available on Lulu, which is a great resource. It has names from lists of all different times and all different cultures, so it's really useful.
It's got an entire list of owlbear names, so.
Behindthename.org.
In case you hear, that was findthename.org. Behind the name, I'm sorry. Also, you might do a Google search for baby names, because then you can search by specific ethnic group if you want to have that flavor in your campaign. Thank you very much. Please.
Hi. I have 2 players. Conveniently, they both live with me, so they will always be there at the sessions. But considering they're very creative people, they're writers, but they find the out loud roleplay kind of awkward. And so we've been trying to figure out, we've got one of them running another character in the group just for group balance, but I kind of feel like that almost makes it more awkward in terms of the roleplay. So should we stick with 2 characters and just focus on describing conversations, or should we try to actually, I guess it's a combination question of, do we need more than 2 players? Do we need more than 2 characters? And how does that affect roleplay?
Randy, let's start with you.
Have you asked them why they felt uncomfortable about it? I mean, is it a general feeling you get off of them? Or?
We've played online roleplay before with no problem for years. But because we're all there in person, it's like talking out loud. It's like, oh, this is so much like LARPing. No, we can't handle it.
Is it just the 3 of you?
Hmm?
Is it just the 3 of you?
Yeah.
Are you opposed to booze? It's sitting around and it's like, well, I feel weird about this.
And it's in our house. We don't even have to drive. So.
If it's just about being let's sit and get comfortable and do something we don't like, well, it's a bottle of Chardonnay night and we're gonna do some role playing.
I'm just trying to find their.
We heard it here first. Not good at Dungeons and Dragons. Self-medicate.
All right, one little point. This is what I've been doing for years. Do bad celebrity impressions on purpose outside a game for the fun of it. It stretches your voice. It gets you used to talking like we're going back to the future. You don't have to be good at it. Don't be good at it. It's better if you're not good at it. But then you can just assume a pose, and now you're this character. And once you start doing it, they will feed off of it.
Well, they love it when I do it. I just Yeah, we'll work that part out. But what about the 2-player thing? Do we need more people?
I've done solo. I've done one-on-one. I'll tell you. I don't think anyone here would tell you.
So we'll just work it out.
Yeah, 2's better. That's awesome. Good for you.
Okay.
Specifically, I do want to touch on this. Emily, I believe you have authored a 2-player role-playing game?
That's right. I wrote a 2-player role-playing game named Breaking the Ice, and I've written a 3-player role-playing game called Shooting the Moon. And it really does work well as long as you get sort of a good dynamic, and once you're really engaged in the characters, I don't think it's a problem. And I actually wanted to say that I also have played a game where every person had like a dozen characters, and that is one of the best games I've ever played. And you get so much richness, and you just have characters that are interacting in different parts of the system. It was based on Ars Magica, so if anyone's played that, and you have the mages and then the coven folk, and so it just means you have a really, really dimensional world. So I hope it works out for you guys.
Thank you. Sir, your question.
It's actually quite a similar question. I often play with a small group, 3, 4, 2 sometimes. Related idea, if not so much from a role-playing perspective, but interpersonal dynamics, if the party needs more characters than you have players, what are your feelings on a DM insert character as like a guest character or more long-term ally? Do you think that's always a bad idea? Or?
It depends on the game, right? Like, most games, the DM is very set apart from the players and has their own responsibilities, and it's like trying to drive a car and talk on your phone at the same time. Like, you could do it, but you might die.
Yeah, great answer or greatest answer?
In the campaign I'm playing in right now, the DM's done that, and he actually made the NPC someone interesting for us to mess with. It's a guy, we rescued him from these mind flayers. He doesn't know who he is, but we keep meeting people who seem to know who he is, and they all think he's someone different, and they all think he's this really awful person. So it's actually really interesting to have this. He could just be Joe Generic Fighter, but he's actually this guy where we're not sure we want to fall asleep with him on guard, we're not really sure who he is. So it actually it added a nice dynamic to it, and it wasn't just the guy who's here to save us. It actually was part of the plot.
So if you're going to do it well.
Basically, yeah.
Also, do not be a Mary Sue. Do not allow yourself to be the most powerful character at the table. In fact, I have seen it work much better when the GM, playing as a PC, is the weakest member of the party whom everyone else knows is a scrub. He just hangs out with us because, we think he's cool. Thank you very much.
2 questions. First of all, some of my party members have chosen moral codes that require them to murder each other for being evil. And I just, my rule is you guys work it out, it's not my problem, and then I just sort of let them argue. Is there some better way of dealing with that?
All right, I'm afraid I'm going to limit you to one question, but that is a great one. Anyone care to jump on this?
Just say no to them.
Look, it's a group effort. We share in this. If they enjoy the argument, great. Let them argue. But most people don't actually enjoy that kind of stress. So learn to say no.
Well, character choice reflects player choice, right? Like, they're playing evil characters for a reason. So say, is this the kind of game you guys want to be playing? If so, let's do it, right? Like, that's what Vampire is all about. They're all evil and hate each other, but it's fun, right? So make sure you're all on the same page, that you're doing it for the same reasons. And if you are, then enjoy your evil, I guess.
And the other question is, we're playing 3.5 and...
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you, sir. Just because we've still got a lot of people to go through, let's have Randy's input on that one, and then we're going to have to bounce to the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's just 2 guys doing it, and there are 4 guys at the table, then you get everybody's input. What are those other 2 guys thinking? Because if those original 2 guys who just want to duke it out are eating 90% of the time, then it may not be as great for the other 2. Or the other 2 guys may just be along for the ride, and they're like, I just want to see how this ends. You don't know, as long, like he said, everybody on the same page, but really pay attention to those 2 guys aren't as, whoever else is playing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hello. So I've run into an issue basically where my games typically start okay, but as they go on, I've run the same world for the past 2 years. The party has consequently brought it to the brink of apocalypse at least 3 times. And as a GM, it's starting to get problematic because I work out all these NPCs and everything else, and it's no matter what happens, the best way to describe it is they start out smart, they go in with all these big ideas, they're all happy about it, and then the players get dumber. And dumber and dumber. It's like watching The Simpsons. It's really freaking terrible. Right now they're engaged in a holy war that they started all on their own.
question for you is, do you have a problem with playing through the apocalypse?
No, actually, by this point I've said, you know what, if you kill the world, you kill the world, it's on you, but you're all gonna die.
Then run with it.
I'm just...
Make it a great ending.
Don't be afraid to blow up the world. All right.
Or just play a different game. There's so many games.
All right, I'm gonna have to say thank you for that. We have about 15 minutes left, so we're gonna switch it up to try to get everyone covered. My sincere apologies if we don't. I'm just gonna go down the row and have Mike take a question, then Matt, you'll answer the next. Sir, please, what is your question?
My players spent a great deal of time since like 3rd level till 11th level buying, supporting, etc., building funds for a war. How do you run the war campaign when you have 5 players and they're in the city and they've created a war against the city? How does the DM or the GM run the rest of the army that's attacking the city that they created and built a war against?
So what I suggest, if you watch movies like the Lord of the Rings series, for the players, their actions, I mean, if they're the bigwigs in their army, there's going to be bigwigs in the other army, and they're going to throw down. And for the rest of it, I'd really drive the results based on what the characters are doing. If the characters are winning or they're being inspiring, if the fighter dies heroically defending the gate, and the warriors at the gate are all inspired and fight to the death and repel the attack. Really tie the players' actions into the rest of the battle. Sort of like the Greek myths, in the Trojan War, and how Achilles' actions basically dictated a lot of the different interpersonal relationships dictated the ebb and flow of the war. I wouldn't worry about trying to mechanically model the actual clash between the two armies. I think I'd really just look at the PCs and say, hey, what they do, that's going to tie into then the entire result of the battle. Really make them the epic, the heroes of the war.
Thank you. Excellent question. Sir.
Thank you. One thing that I've noticed that a lot of the GMs I've been a part of they like to use music to create a immersion. It starts off okay, but it tends to just kind of get in the way, and it's kind of messy, and we forget about it, and then it just gets really distracting after a while. So where's the balance where the music works and where it doesn't work?
Well, I think that's dependent on each individual group. So if it's causing a distraction with your group or too much work for you as a GM, then you dump it. I use music a lot in my games, but usually I have a big library of stuff that I can play and draw on, and yeah, if it's slowing down the game, I'm not going to use it.
Thank you. Please.
Hi. So in one of the campaigns I'm running right now, we meet kind of sporadically. Sometimes we get to meet every week. Sometimes we meet once a month. So to make the most of the time we have together, I encourage the players to do things like a buy and sell via email. So tell me ahead of time so I can figure it out, not when we're together. Some people are great, some people are not. And then they want to do it the day of, and it just kind of takes up time. And it bothers me that they're not, doing this ahead of time, but I also feel weird about being all draconian and saying, oh, you can't do this now because it's for them, right? I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, I think that you get to a point with any group of people where you realize you can't change their behavior, right? No matter how much you want them to be engaged, there's always going to be players that won't engage in the way that you want. But when you're in the actual session, and you're playing a game in which the GM is the authority, you have that right to say, okay, everybody who got your moves in between games, all that stuff happens. Everybody else who missed it, better luck next time. Sorry. And they're going to be disappointed, but it's on them to decide whether they want to put the effort in or suffer the mechanical consequences on the character end.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next question, please.
I had a question about when it seems like encounters take up a large portion of the a single encounter will take up a majority of the session, where it'll take maybe 3 hours or so. So it just feels like the encounter can just take a long time. I'm not sure if it's a better idea to have less goons in the fight, because that kind of bogs the battle down, and then just trade in multiple goons for maybe a bigger guy, or if that just kind of makes it too easy so they can just gang up on the bigger one.
Is that your feeling, or is it the players too that are complaining about it?
No, they've never mentioned it, but I just feel like it seems like it just takes a long time just to get through just a single encounter.
It can be. It's going to, again, be based on your system. If you're doing a heavy story system and it's taking a long time, then that would be very weird. But if it's a heavy crunch system and it's taking a long time, then that would be far more normal because they're doing
The math and whatnot.
They're doing the math, they're using their special moves, they're like what's best for it. If they aren't uncomfortable with it, but it really bothers you, I mean,
is there any like tips to like expedite battle in general?
yeah, don't let anybody get analysis paralysis. Like when it's, because you know what's going on. If you've got people who are just like hands in the air thinking about what they're doing, and especially if it's, what is it, 4 or 6 people in the fighter, Lord, 13 like some of these people are doing. Every minute that somebody is indecisive is another minute in the combat, and it's another minute before then somebody else gets to input their action. So if it's not bothering, first of all, if it's not bothering them, I wouldn't worry about it. And if it is bothering them and it's bothering you, I would look into analysis paralysis and like, well, how much am I actually giving you to do? I don't know if a big guy or a bunch of little guys cut down on the crunch, get it more story, and it'll smooth it out more than the size of the enemy.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
See us after the panel. I may have something for you. Please.
Okay. Well, I think this might be the start of what my problem with my group is I'm their first DM, and they are coming strictly from World of Warcraft heavy stat build. So they come into my game, and I want to know, how can I stop them from asking me, can I do something? And how do I get them to stop worrying about the math so much and play your character? Don't just say, oh, I just want to do this because it's the biggest thing. Help them build a reason, give their character something that isn't just the numbers on the page.
I'd say there's a couple of different approaches I'd take. When you're starting your characters, or maybe after a while if you've already been working with some characters, just have a beginning of a session where you sit down and say, okay, let's find out more about your interactions with each other, with other characters in the world, and that'll ground them more and give them also something that they'll latch onto in each other's characters and not keep looking to you for information. And another dirty trick is to ask them questions. To say, okay, so today, last week you killed that character, and what is it that's haunting you about that encounter? So that if you give them more authorial prompts for the authorship, then they'll probably rise to it. And also, you might have to hold their hands into wading deeper into taking responsibility for it, but they'll probably start to really love it, especially if they see that you're specifically giving them that space to do it. So, give it a shot.
Thank you. I'm very sorry, guys. We're going to have time for one more question, then we're going to wrap this up. But most of us will be available after the panel outside. If those of you who haven't been able to get to would like to ask a question, we will make our time available for you. My apologies. Could you throw us out the last question, sir?
All right. I run a Rogue Trader campaign, and the characters' words and their interest level and the way they build their characters all seem to express interest in being effective in individual combat. However, their actions, when they're in charge of a crew of 70,000 and are taking 5,000 people into battle, do not reflect that. So how can I separate them from their troops so they actually have a chance to shine in what they have developed themselves to be good at?
Demote them. Take the armies. They're not using the armies. Why give them armies if they're not going to use them to the capacity that they need to use them? Just demote them. Have them be a squad that goes off and does special missions on the side, and then have people that are in charge of them run the armies and maybe do a bad job, and they have to refer to them for advice or something. Incorporate them in a different way. Because if they're not going to engage you in that level, then you're barking up the wrong tree.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
All right, we just have a few minutes left, so first we're going to do some closing thoughts from our panelists, and if we have any time left, I'll throw one last thing out at you all. Mike, would you like to start us? What is your idea or thought that you would like to leave everyone here at PAX with?
Oh, I think it's all about just making sure that you and your players all understand everyone has an equal stake in having a good time. And so, it's not just about you as the DM wielding the GM bat and smacking people into line. It's about everyone taking an equal part and having a good time. That's kind of low-hanging fruit, but I'm tired. I don't know what's up. But maybe some of you haven't heard that yet. So.
One of the best ways of becoming a better GM is to play more games. So drop by the Games on Demand area tomorrow, or at this show or another show, and just try games you've never heard of. Try different styles of play. If you always play fantasy, try a horror game or a science fiction game.
So my answer, I think, spins out from that is that the reason why you want to try all of these different games is that the story that emerges from play comes from interactions between the players and the rules of the game. And if the rules of the game aren't encouraging your players to take the kinds of action that you want the story to be about, then you're playing the wrong game. And you'll never know that if you only ever play one game. I mean, hell, there's several dozen versions of Dungeons and Dragons alone. So maybe you're not even playing the right version of the same game. But be willing to get out there and just try stuff and think about why you like one game more than another as you build that experience.
I'd say decide how much you want to be in the room, where the tech level is that you're actually using with the people you've got. Do you want to have laptops there? Do you want to really go pencil and paper and have pencils and paper? Do you want to outlaw cell phones? Do you want to say, for 3 hours, once a week, this is our get away from everybody time? Or do you want to say, hey, we're here to BS, drink beer, and play a little story, so it doesn't matter if you're texting people or on Facebook or whatever. Just realize where you want to be in your game night and get it there so everybody's, again, same thing as everybody's saying, have a good time. There's no point in doing it if it's just painful for somebody.
I want to give a shout out to all the women GMs who came up and asked great questions and who are out here. And just a word to all of us to remember to ask people if they want a GM. You know, women especially sometimes are a little hesitant to step up, or sometimes have come to it a little later, not all the time, but might feel like they're intruding. And encourage people, whoever they are, women, people of color, to GM, because we can all do it. And we want to hear what people have to say and their ideas. So.
You thank all the white males that came up? Because there's a lot of you. That wasn't fair, but it's getting better. That's the great thing. It is actually getting better. Pay attention to the questions your players ask. What do they ask you about the game? That's what they want to know about mechanically. That's the things they want to do. Pay attention to the questions they ask about the world, about the NPCs. Flesh out those areas. Sometimes GMs get blinders. I want to tell this story. Why don't you pay attention to this story? It isn't about your story, it's about their story, and you're there to facilitate.
Now there's the part of the panel where I play the trump card of I'm the moderator, and I'm going to throw out 2 thoughts. First, play everything you can find here. I will vouch for these people. You will not go wrong, whether it's the Dungeon Delve run by Wizards of the Coast, or some crazy indie system in the indie RPG booth that you've never heard of, where you're covered in flour and you're playing a snail. Steve Jackson games, everything you'll find at the Indie Press Revolutions booth, you name it, there's a lot of great stuff here, so don't be afraid to try new flavors. Finally, stealing a line from the blog, playing D&D with porn stars. What is the best game? Answer, the game you run tonight. It doesn't matter if you have been doing this for 10 years or 5 minutes. It doesn't matter if you use every source book out there or you're flying by the seat of your pants with a single D20. If you and your players are having a good time, you are running the right game, and kudos to you. So, thank you all for coming and sharing with us. If anyone would like to come ask some questions.